Today's show, we'll talk about how Turkish killed their 1 million mile promotion early. We'll get put 'em by the Ritz. And we'll talk about how Uncle Miler can redeem his transferable points for cash.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now. Today's main event, no longer traveling? How to cash out your transferable points. Recently, I've had multiple family members ask me, what should they do with their points if they're not traveling? And of course, I won't let them redeem for bad value. So they're kind of stuck. So this show, the main event, is intended to tell them and anyone else in a similar situation what they can do with their points and how they can turn them into cash.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And remember, if you want to jump ahead to that or you want to come back and visit something later on, you can always find the timestamps in the show notes. So just expand the description box to find that. And wherever you're watching or listening, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment or some feedback. We always appreciate hearing from you. So thank you for that. Let's drag out this week's giant mailbag.
This week's giant mail is about the JetBlue promo, which we'll talk a little bit more about the promo a little bit later in the show. But what Sam says is, Greg, you've got to do this. You are the frequent miler. Seriously, I've learned so much from you over the years and have always been inspired by your know-how, but also your adventures. The Richard Branson Necker Island deal is when you had me hooked. It's the game. This is basically a challenge written for frequent miler. And I think you and Nick being about to soft compete on this could be a fun element too. Who knows if JetBlue will be here in 15 years? I'm not sure that matters. You'll write a book one day, and I bet you will regret not having done this. It's totally on brand and totally you. All right, Sam, thank you for this note. I do have to mention a couple of things. JetBlue, might not be here in 15 years or 25 years for how long the status would last. But also, you're committing me to a lot here, Sam. Not only are you committing me to doing the JetBlue promo, but writing a book as well.
Can I get an autographed copy of the book that you write someday, Greg?
Sure.
Okay, good.
Just for you.
Good.
And Sam, of course.
Good. You see, Sam, you heard it here. It's going to be recorded forever and ever. So, So, I mean, did Sam convince you, or are you going for it? What's going on?
Not quite. So here's the thing. It's a ton of work. I've promised my wife I wouldn't be as away from home as much as I was last year. This does not help with that promise. If I could get away a handful of times midweek when my wife is working and just be gone for one night or at max 2, and get all 25 through maybe 5 separate trips like that, then I would probably do it. I don't know if I have the time to plan it all. So if someone can come up with a plan that meets those requirements where I'm only away from home, maybe 5 nights total, and the travel is like midweek, then I'll do it. So if you have a plan for me, Sam, send it in.
Maybe I'll send Greg a plan for him. I'll put it together for you, Greg, midweek. I could come up with something for you, probably something. Hopefully not too torturous. And if not, I look forward to reading the chapter about how much you regret not having Mosaic status, just like I do. Hopefully at that point when you write the book.
Yeah. I've been watching Nick jet around with his Mosaic
extra legroom seats for years. Free checked bag every time. Yeah, he's going to be very jealous, I'm sure. I look forward to reading about that. But anyway, but it's a fun one. And like Greg said, it takes a lot of time and effort. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about, speaking of these challenges, like the JetBlue thing, these mega airline promos are all over the place and in some cases just over. So let's talk about some mega airline promo updates.
Yeah. First up, Turkish. We spent a whole episode talking about their great promo where you fly to 6 continents, you get 1 million Turkish miles, and Turkish just all of a sudden just killed the promo. Just out of the blue, they're like, yeah, we've had enough of that one. So that on their website for the promo, it now says, thank you for the great interest you have shown in our Route 6 Continents campaign. In line with recent updates, which who knows what that means, the campaign is officially concluded as of July 8th, 2025. Members who purchased at least one ticket or completed a flight across 6 continents by July 8th, 2025 will retain their eligibility. If these members complete their all flights, I'm reading it verbatim, across 6 continents by October 27th, 2025, they will be earned 1 million miles.
Woo! How very Turkish Airlines of them. This was on brand. This was on brand for them. Let's have something awesome, and then let's all of a sudden just take it away and tell you right when it's ending that it's over. And like, I was very not surprised, but also I found this very frustrating. There were probably people out there that had spent time planning or whatever, and surely there are some people who will not go back to the promo landing page before they start booking their flights that probably heard about this and will book a flight after July 8th, not realizing that because they didn't before July 8th, it doesn't count.
Right.
Who would expect that they announced a promotion and planned a promotion and set out dates for the promotion, and then they just were going to pull it like in 2 weeks?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, the part that I don't think is on brand for Turkish is that they did put it on the website that it's ended. What would be much more on brand is for them to end it without telling you.
Oh no, that one was over. I'm sorry. I mean, we ended that July.
Yeah.
Line with updates. We ended that July 8th.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're right. That would be more. So somebody got through and was like, no, guys, come on, you got to put something on the website. Let somebody know. So that was a surprise and disappointing, although I wasn't going after this one myself, as we talked about, although my wife kept bringing it up, like saying that I should be trying to do that. And including in the day or two before that. And there's a part of me that spent a minute thinking about it. Not much more than 60 seconds. But I'm kind of relieved that now I don't even have to worry about it. It's just over.
Yeah. It feels to me the way they handle this a bit like for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fans, the book, if I remember, it's so many years since I read it, but if I remember right, Earth was scheduled to be bulldozed to make way for an intergalactic highway, and so they posted the news like on some planet somewhere far away. And so it was posted. You should have known.
That's right. Ouch, Turkish. Apparently they did not budget to print enough miles for that one. So I guess the monopoly money ran out on that one.
Yeah, I'm guessing that they were somehow surprised by how many people were intending to do it or something. I don't really know.
I feel like
what happened there?
Did they analyze how many people had booked flights? How many individuals had booked flights to 6 continents, and they were like, "Oh wow, that's more miles than we thought," or like, because you wouldn't, if somebody had only booked 1 or 2 flights, you wouldn't know that they're going after this. Because how many people probably in any given time period book a flight or 2 with Turkish with no intention to visit 6 continents? I mean, probably the vast majority of their customers. So they had to be probably only looking at the people who had booked to 6 continents, and they were that surprised, like 2 weeks in, by how many people were doing it.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just what they said. It's in line with recent updates.
That absolutely makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Turkish. Okay.
All right. Now, on the other side of things is Etihad, who have their own multi-million mile promo going on, and they sat there going, why is nobody talking about this? Why is nobody doing this?
They're like, Frequent Miler hasn't done a podcast about ours. They did JetBlue, they did Turkish. We've been around a while here, and they haven't said anything.
Right. What's going on? So let's first remind you what the Etihad promo was, and then we'll talk about what's happened. So the promo was that Etihad had 15 new destinations that they flew to around the world that they fly to. And they said the first person to fly all 15 will get 5 million miles. Second person, 3 million miles. And third, 1 million miles. So that sounds great, except that, first of all, one of those 15 is in Russia. And I don't know a lot of Americans that are flying to Russia right now. And so it's not. It would be difficult for our audience to do this. But also the thing is, you would have no idea.
Right.
You'd have to book all these flights, and you have no idea if you'd be first, second, or third. Right. And so it just seems like, why even bother when chances are really good you'd get nothing. So what Etihad decided to do was introduce extra bonuses along the way, which they should have had from the get-go. Right. So now what they're doing is the first 100 people to visit 5 of Etihad's new destinations will earn 25,000 bonus miles, and the first 100 people to visit 10 will earn 100,000 bonus miles. And those are cumulative. So if you're first to 5 and 10, you get the 125,000 miles. So what do you think, Nick? Is this does this make it podcast worthy? Should we be?
Not at all. Not at all. I almost feel guilty that we have this much time dedicated to it. It's no. I mean, you'd have to be one of the 3. And I think if I read it right, and that's an if, but if I read the latest update right, it sounded like, so when they first launched this, it sounded exactly the way Greg just described it. First person to get to the 15 gets 5 million miles, and only 3 people get anything. And so everything Greg just said, co-sign on that. But when I read the most recent release, it sounded to me like they were actually kind of reframing the rules. So the person who makes it to 15 in the shortest amount of time, perhaps, is going to get the 5 million miles. Because the way it was written sounded like the cumulative shortest amount of time for the 15 destinations, which made me wonder, is this like Amazing Race style now, where you got to get 15 done in the shortest physical amount of time? Because they mentioned that it's going to go through next May. So that sounds to me almost, I thought when I read it anyway, I read it as though it was going to be a competition where you might hit all 15 and not know until next May whether you were the person that did it fast enough or not.
Okay. Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong. It doesn't really matter because nobody's going to do this. Like Greg said, it's a waste of money either way to chase this. If you were already going to these 15 places, or you were going to 13 of them, maybe, and you have a visa to visit Russia, maybe. But no way you're starting at 0. And the bonus is 25,000 miles for going to 5 destinations. So you're going to get an extra 5,000 miles per destination if you're one of the first 100 people, and another 10,000 for the first 10 destinations if you're one of those first 100. So best case scenario, you're going to get an extra 12,500 miles per destination over the course of those 10 destinations if you're in the first 100 for both of those. Not enough. Nope. Sorry, Etihad.
Totally agree.
You needed to do way more than this.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not in the running, Etihad.
No.
All right. So let's give an update about the JetBlue promo. Do you want to summarize it real quickly, and then we'll talk about that?
Yeah. So the JetBlue promo we talked about in a previous episode. So if you've missed that episode somehow or missed the promotion, very simple. You fly to 15 JetBlue destinations by the end of this year, by December 31st. And you'll get 150,000 JetBlue TrueBlue points. If you fly to 20 destinations, you'll get an additional 200,000 points. So if you fly to 20 JetBlue destinations, that's a total of 350,000 bonus points. And if you bump that up 5 more and you fly to 25 JetBlue destinations by the end of the year, you'll get 25 years of Mosaic 1 status with JetBlue. And that's between June 27th and December 31st. So flights you took before that don't count. So that's the basics of the promo. Unlike Etihad, it's not like the first 3 people or the first 100 people. It's everybody that is a JetBlue member that meets those qualifications. Now, you do have to fly blue fares or better, and you have to have your JetBlue number attached to the booking, etc. There are some more rules. You can see our post, which will be linked for sure in the show notes for more information about that. And then they had an additional separate promotion that I guess we also have to discuss.
Yeah. So the other promotion is the Dunkin' Donuts promo, where they have this plane that's all decked out with the Dunkin' branding all over it. And they have almost every Monday of the summer, if you fly the Dunkin' plane, and the schedule's released the Tuesday beforehand. If you fly the Dunkin' plane on one of the routes that it's flying on the Monday, then If you don't already have Mosaic status, you get Mosaic 1 status for 3 months. If you do already have Mosaic status, you get 20 tiles towards the next level of status or to re-up your status. So Nick and I flew the Duncan plane on Monday, this past Monday. Also, our friend Julian, who's the founder of PointsPath, also was on the plane, and we showed up at the airport and looked out the window at the plane, and what did we see?
We didn't see anything Duncan, that's for sure. We saw just a plain old JetBlue plane. But yeah, so there was nothing no special livery. It was not the Duncan plane. So I almost jumped in a minute ago when Greg said, so we flew the Duncan plane the other day, to be like, whoa. We booked the Duncan plane on Monday. We didn't fly the Duncan plane because it wasn't there. So apparently something went wrong. They had to, broken plane. They had to fix it. So we ended up on a different plane, equipment swap. And so that was kind of a bummer, except I don't know if I really care what the outside of the plane looks like that I'm flying in. I know that, that's something that airlines do. They paint them with different things and people get excited about that. I don't know. Not my thing.
Right. But the inside was a bummer because there weren't like donuts just floating in the air everywhere that you could just pick out of the air and eat them whenever you want.
There's just Dunkin' coffee, which...
There was Dunkin' coffee available, I guess. I didn't ask. So anyway, despite that, we were pretty confident that they would honor the promotion. And the interesting thing is the next day, we all found that we had 20 tiles in our accounts, in our JetBlue accounts, which are, again, they are the sort of currency that's used to get you to elite status. So you need 50 to get to Mosaic 1. So we had 20, but it also gives you sort of milestone rewards along the way. And so we were able to each pick 5,000 bonus points because we had 20 of these tiles. And then we were left crossing our fingers, hoping that we would get Mosaic status also, because that's what we were supposed to get in the first place. And the next day after that, Mosaic status appeared in my account. I'm waiting to hear what's happened with Nick's account.
Must be nice. Yeah, mine is still just a regular TrueBlue member. I don't have Mosaic status. Greg got an email, I think, even confirming that you got the Mosaic, but I've not seen any email this morning as we record this, we record on Thursday usually. So this is Thursday morning for us right now as we record it. And the points showed up this morning from the flight in the sense that you earn points on a paid flight. So those points and the tiles based on the spend on that flight showed up this morning in my account. So I know that they have a record that I was on the plane and I got credit for it, but I don't have any status yet. And as far as I know, Julian doesn't either. So it's so far only Greg, the frequent miler, that got the Mosaic 1 status, but I'm pretty confident it's going to come through because it is the flight shows in my account. I got the 20 tiles that Greg did also, and I got the tiles based on the spend and also credit for the spend as though it was a blue fare, not like a blue basic or something. You might remember I booked through Capital One Travel, and I was confident it was a blue fare because it said so in Capital One Travel and it matched the price on JetBlue.com. Right. But now I have extra confirmation because if it was blue basic, it would have earned fewer points. Speaking of earning fewer points, one thing I learned that I didn't realize before, I had looked up airfares before on the JetBlue site and it showed that blue fares earn 6 points per dollar. So I just assumed that was it, even though I've probably written a JetBlue guide at frequentmiler.com explaining that blue fares only earn 3 points per dollar. You earn an additional 3 if you book through JetBlue.com or the JetBlue app. But because I booked through Capital One Travel, I only earned 3 points per dollar, which I now realize is indeed the correct number of points for a blue fare that you don't book through them. So I talked about booking all my flights through, or most of my flights through Amex Travel, and I assume I will earn fewer points than somebody who books their flights through JetBlue.com. So that's just something I figured was worth a mention, because when I did the math, actually, in the table that I have in the post, I think I used 6 points per dollar as my metric for buying all the flights. But I'm going to have to go back and half all of that because I was intending to book most of those through Amex Travel. So anyway. So it wasn't a big difference. It doesn't make a big difference because the points you earn on the flights are pretty small in comparison to what you're going to earn in terms of the bonuses from the promotion. But I thought it was worth mentioning anyway. I'll share one last thing on this that maybe I'll come back to later in the show. that I did actually put together an itinerary that probably would interest Greg, the frequent miler, where we were intending to hit 8 airports in 3 days at an average cost of about $134 an airport. So I was pretty excited about that for my whole family. And then a piece of it fell apart. I'll probably come back to that later in the show. But anyway, I thought it was worth mentioning that it is possible, because I did plan a trip to hit 8 airports in 3 days and only backtrack once and no red eyes. So I'm not going to share all the details of that yet, because I'm hopeful that I can put the pieces back together for a different set of dates. But I will share another piece of that later on.
That's really impressive. Yeah. So next steps, and we'll follow up on future shows, is for Nick to actually book and complete the promo to get his 25 years of status and all those points, and for him to also convince me to actually do this. So those are the follow-ups.
All you need is 3 days like that. I planned a 3-day trip for 8 airports. If you did that 3 times, you'd be at 24, Greg. You probably couldn't do it
and all the stress of spending all day
of
figuring it out, and then the flight getting booked up or whatever before you book it is
let's move on. Let's move on before I think about that anymore. All right, card news is up next. So for this week's card news, we got a new offer out on the Citi AAdvantage Platinum Select card. What's the new offer?
Yeah, it's really good. 80,000 points after $3,500 spend. So American Airlines miles are super valuable for booking their partners, especially international business class awards on partners, and can be really valuable on American Airlines itself. It just, they have dynamic pricing for their own awards, so it just varies. And with this card, the $99 annual fee is waived the first year. So 80,000 points, no annual fee first year, 3,500 spend. That's a really good combination. If you are eligible, I would certainly go for that.
Very good. Excellent. Another card news tidbit to share is the UBS Visa Infinite card. Now, not to be confused with USB or US Bank. This is UBS, which is a different bank entirely. The UBS Visa Infinite has increased their annual fee, but increased the benefits. And this actually looks pretty interesting.
Yeah. Luckily, Stephen dived into this and wrote a post about this. And these are cards that we haven't talked about much. We haven't written much about because there's no welcome bonus, and it's kind of a hassle to apply. You have to call, and they're mainly looking for, high value accounts. So, I doubt like students would be able to get approved, but the cards are $650 each. And when I say cards, it's just that there's both a business and a personal version. Otherwise, they're pretty identical as far as I can tell. And here's what they have for $650. First of all, you get a really good version of Priority Pass, where it includes unlimited guests, as long as the Priority Pass lounge allows unlimited guests. Some of them have limits that they set themselves. And it does include restaurants. So if you're at a place where there's a restaurant at an airport where there's a restaurant that accepts Priority Pass, that means you get your meal for free or up to $28 usually. And so that's awesome. And I'm pointing that out because many versions of Priority Pass now do not include restaurants. It also offers free authorized users, and each of the authorized users get their own Priority Pass with unlimited guests and restaurants. Then to offset the $650 annual fee, you've got a $500 annual airline fee credit for whatever domestic airline you select as your preferred airline. So it sounds like it works a lot like the Amex airline fee credit, but this is $500. And if you've learned the tricks of how to earn back the Amex airline fee credit, then all those tricks plus more probably work for this. So it shouldn't be too hard to get the $500 back. And further, if you spend $25,000 with one of these cards, you get $500 back towards restaurants, Amazon Prime, and airport lounge fees. So, that's like an extra. If you think about just using it on restaurants, for example, or whatever you would have spent anyway, then it's kind of like an extra 2% back on $25,000 spend. One commenter said, So the way it's written does sound like this is true. One commenter said that you only have to spend the $25,000 every other year in order to get the $500 back every year. Because the way it's written is that this perk is valid for the rest of the calendar year in which you spent $25,000 and all of the next calendar year. And it doesn't say a total of $500 is valid. The $500 seems to be calendar year. Anyway, so I think that person's probably right, which is a really interesting and weird way to do that. Yeah. But that's nice if it's true. Yeah. I noticed, I didn't dig in too much, but it seems to have excellent travel protections, very similar to Sapphire Reserve, with 6-hour trip delay, emergency evacuation coverage, and all the other standard stuff. Is cell phone protection and event ticket protection. So I found that kind of interesting. So if you bought a event ticket with the card and you get sick, or you have to cancel due to a covered reason, which I didn't get into the details of what that is, you're covered for up to $500 per ticket, and then there's other limits, how many tickets can be covered for that, and so on.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there were some Citi cards that used to have that but don't anymore. So so yeah, that actually sounds like a really good deal for $650 actually. Like that's an interesting card.
Yeah. The downside is like the earning rate isn't that great. The opportunities for getting outsized value from your points are limited. There's no transfer partners. You can get outsized value using your points for airfare, but the best value is when airfare reaches an exact threshold. And so it's kind of complicated to get great value. So I don't love those parts about it.
Yeah. But, so I guess I guess my point more so, or should have been, that if spending $25,000 on this card every other year is easy for you, then the return here looks really good, because I don't know what the return is on everyday purchases, but even if it's 0, you're essentially going to get 4.
Well, it's at least right. It's a minimum of 1%.
Right. So I mean, you're going to get essentially another 4% over the course of 2 years after you've spent the $25K, the $500 airline fee credit, and the great priority pass. That's a good trade for $650, I think.
It is. So. It is. Yeah.
All right.
So it's pretty compelling.
Yeah. Nice. All right. That's pretty cool. Good to hear about that card that we have had on our best offers page for a long time, but I had never bothered really to dig into it because it's not, like Greg said, not easy to get, in the sense that you can't just apply online. And so I kind of ignored it. But yeah, very cool that Stephen dug into that for us. All right.
Yep.
What crazy thing did Chase or the Ritz-Carlton credit card? What crazy thing did Chase do this week? Let's frame it that way. What crazy thing did Chase do this week?
Yeah. So there was a rumor out on Reddit and some other forums that people were being told by Chase representatives that the Ritz card, the Ritz-Carlton credit card, the annual fee was going to increase from $450 to $695 on August 1st. And that the only major addition and perks was going to be a $200 card member year credit for Renowned Hotels and Resorts, which is the hotel program that they have rebates for with certain United cards now. And someone posted that there were also going to be 3 Ritz-Carlton bar vouchers, but that doesn't seem consistent. But the other part of the rumor seemed to be very consistent in that multiple people would post the same details. And when we posted the rumor, someone commented as Jack and said, I just talked with a customer service rep who confirmed that the annual fee is increasing to $695 for renewals on or after August 1st. An announcement is pending the finalization of $200 statement credit mentioned in the article, and it was mentioned by name on the call. No other statement credits are being added. So there you have it. And so that's what we knew going in. But then we get an email the other day from the head of external communications at Chase Card Services, who said, I want to let you know that there are no upcoming annual fee changes to the Ritz-Carlton card. So we wrote back saying, okay, great, but why are all these customer service reps saying, these exact details, 695, August 1st. And whatever's going on, they're not telling us. So the reply was no additional details to share at this time. But to be clear, there are no upcoming annual fee changes on the Ritz-Carlton card.
Well, that's really interesting in a lot of different ways. So, first of all, I would be very bummed if this card increases $695 and just added a $200 coupon for a hotel booking, because I've often said that you'll have to pry this one out of my cold dead hands, and I would have probably had some cold dead hands at that point. It was going to be $695 with a $200 coupon added. So I was very bummed initially, thinking, oh, my Ritz cards are going away, just when we're getting started with them, because we finally have 3 of them between my wife and I now through upgrades and whatnot. So the 85K starts are now more useful since you can use multiple of them in a row, so to speak. But anyway, yeah, so I was initially bummed, but then I was also kind of like, you know what, maybe this is going to help me because I need to get rid of some of these ultra premium cards. It's getting kind of expensive. So maybe it was a good thing that it was going to kind of force my hand. And then they came out of nowhere, with this email saying, yeah, no, that's not right. And to be clear, like probably most readers just expect that we hear from reps all the time like this, and it was atypical. Let me put it that way. It was very atypical for somebody to have reached out like this. This is not something that happens on a daily, regular basis. So that was out of the ordinary for someone to reach out and say, hey, this isn't right. We're not going to increase the fee. So I don't know. What do you make of this? I mean, do you think the fee's going to increase? Do you think they were planning it and they changed their minds for some reason? Like, what's the real story, Greg?
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities, right? I mean, one possibility is that for some reason that I can't imagine why, it was a hoax that people posted under different aliases about this, but it's such a niche card. Like, I don't know what the point would be of that hoax, right? So if we say it's not a hoax, then that means that multiple reps that people were talking to had the same information that is now wrong. So I'm saying it's now wrong because it almost seems like it had to have been right, or at least somebody thought it was right at Chase in order to release that information to call center reps. And so now, did they back out? I mean, the other possibility, right, is that what this head of communications is telling us is a lie, but I really don't think that's true, because to send something that is provably false will be provably false in like weeks, less than a month, to podcasters and bloggers and stuff, because they also send it to other people, other blogs and things, would be crazy. I mean, they would lose all goodwill, and we would just kind of go nuts on them about that. So I don't think that's happening. But what do you think?
Well, I think I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say go on a limb because obviously I don't work at Chase and I don't have any insight there. But I'm going to go on a limb here and say that it is about as likely that pigs fly as it is that the annual fee is going to go up. Like I can't imagine that they will increase the annual fee soon on the Ritz card after reaching out to blogs like that. And the person who reached out, like, it was easy to verify that this is somebody that has been on other emails like long ago in the past and whatnot. So it's not like it was somebody spoofed an email address, probably. Like, I think it's legit that Chase is saying this is not increasing. And so I believe that, because they wouldn't be explicit in the way that they were. It would be more like we don't have any information to share at this time. Like, that's more common corporate speak. Like, oh, well, we don't have any information to share about the Ritz card right now. But that wasn't this. This was, the fee is not increasing on the Ritz card. It's very direct. And so, like you said, I think there's no way they can go back on that now. Or if they do anyway, that's a pretty big embarrassment, I think, for them. So I don't think it's going to increase now. I think somebody thought it was, and with the level of detail, I mean, I often think that incorrect things pass through call centers really quickly, because once one person says this is the answer, I think it's probably very easy for that answer to spread around from rep to rep or supervisor to supervisor. So I think it could be that this was discussed. Maybe this is planned at some point in the future, and it was mentioned to like a supervisor or something from someone who was in the meeting and then got passed around as though it's coming, even though maybe they weren't ready for that yet. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this change eventually. And I don't think they care whether we like it or not. Like, I don't think that they're responding to, oh, people were unhappy that we were going to do this. I don't think that matters at all. I just think that they decided they weren't ready for this, and somebody got, the game of telephone at the wrong point in the game and release this information at a time when they aren't doing it. So I don't think it's going to happen yet.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a year from now. Maybe it'll be next August 1st. I'd keep my eye out, because maybe it was August 1st. It was just August 1st of 2026 and I didn't get communicated right. I don't know.
That could be. That's about the most reasonable explanation I've heard about this. Anyway, it firmly fits into a what crazy thing situation. So, thanks for providing us some material, Chase.
And I will say also, it's odd how crazy lately things have been at Chase, isn't it? I mean, they've been very reliable, kind of like customer service has been very reliable, and most of their card launches and everything else. And then the whole Sapphire Reserve thing feels like it's been very shaky, kind of botched launch on that, to be honest. And then this too, it's just, there's a lot of odd stuff coming out lately from them. So
I totally agree. Yeah.
So hopefully they return to form and these little slips stop happening. All right, let's get into the next piece of today's show, which is our Bonvoyed segment. So let's talk about how many people have been Bonvoyed recently by Alaska Airlines Mileage Plan.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have much specific to report other than lots of people have been reporting that their mileage plan accounts have been hacked and people have been redeeming their miles. And so it's worth checking your account. And if you've lost any miles, call Alaska right away and get that fixed. Now, this isn't Alaska Airlines itself intentionally bonvoying us, but they really ought to think about improving the security around logging into their account. I mean, so many programs now have some form of two-factor authentication, and if Alaska's not requiring that yet, they are to really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, hacks happen. The bad guys. I remember a line in a book when I was a kid that I read that was like, locks only work essentially. I can't remember. Oh, man, I can't remember the line, but it was basically like you make a smarter lock and you're going to get a smarter thief. And so, it's going to kind of continue to be a cat and mouse game. So there are probably always going to be bad guys out there doing stuff. Bad guys and girls, bad folks out there doing stuff that that hacks into people's accounts. But this seemed more widespread. It was that was the thing that kind of caught our eye here. There were more reports. I mean, you get reports all the time here and there, like little trickle reports of somebody whose account got hacked for one reason or another. Maybe they were reusing a password. Maybe they were, their individual situation. It might be hard to read, but this was a wide range of folks that were reporting it. So that was the more concerning thing. And some of them, certainly it didn't sound like it was a password reuse type of a situation. So I don't know how it happened, but nonetheless, I agree. Alaska got to increase security there, because that was a little concerning to see so many. I was updating my balance and reward wallet obsessively for a couple of days just to make sure that everything was cool there. But that's part of the value of, I think, using a tool like that I could at least keep track of it. And if something happens, I'll hopefully know pretty quickly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to awards points and more. And for awards points and more, we now have, speaking of Alaska Mileage Plan, a new option for your Alaska miles, because Porter Airlines is now bookable via Alaska Miles, and redemptions start at 4,500 miles each way in economy. And is it 6,000 in business?
No, they don't have business.
Okay.
What they have is like extra legroom type of seating or something for 6,000 miles one way. Starting at, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a great price. Obviously, Porter's a Canadian airline with a pretty look to me like pretty extensive route network across Canada and dipping into the U.S. in many places. So it can be a great way to save money on flying Porter and potentially connecting to other longer haul flights as well.
Yeah, that's really what I was thinking about when I saw this, that from a positioning standpoint, this could be useful because I sometimes find far more awards out of major Canadian cities different times a year than I do out of US cities. And that's not terribly useful for someone who's far from the border. But if you're in a city where it's a relatively short hop to one of the major Canadian cities, it could be worth looking at positioning. And this would certainly be, I think, the best deal for positioning that you're likely to find anyway. So I think it's worth keeping in mind for that. Also, Flying Blue promo rewards more frequently put awards on sale. It feels to me anyway, business class awards on sale from the Canadian cities. Often Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto are in there. So it's worth keeping an eye on those things and seeing if maybe you can position for just 4,500 miles or not very many miles, however many it may be, depending on your distance. So I think that's a cool addition.
Yeah, one little thing to be aware of is that I think their main hub is the Toronto City Airport, not the main Toronto airport. So using it to fly, I don't know that they don't fly to the main YYZ airport, but if you're using it to fly onward in Toronto, make sure you have a really long layover, because you'd be going to the city airport, most likely.
Good safety tip there. All right, that brings us to this week's main event.
Main event time. So you're no longer traveling. Here's how to cash out those transferable points you've got. All right, this started because a while ago now, my uncle reached out to me. He had been signing up for Amex cards when the offers were really big, and he has a whole lot of membership rewards points, but he's gotten to the age where he's just not traveling much anymore. So he was asking me, what can I do with these points? Is there a way to cash them out and, just get a decent value out of them that way? Meanwhile, just the other day, I had a conversation with my son who's at the other end of this. It's not that he's not traveling. It's just that he has these Chase points and Bilt points that I won't let him use for poor value. And so the only good value, or the main way to use them for good value, is through travel. But he really is in a point of his life where cash back is more meaningful. And so I figured if there's two people close to me in my life that are in this situation where they have transferable points, but don't really want to use them for travel, that'd be worth talking about. What are ways to cash them out? And specifically, how do you get at least 1 cent per point value? Because some of these programs, like Bilt, like Amex, if you just use their built-in system to cash them out directly, you're going to get way less than a penny per point value. And that's a crying shame if that happens. So I won't let you do that.
Good. You shouldn't. You should, because really, if you're going to collect the points, you want them to be worth, well, certainly if you're going to collect points from spend. There are very few situations where it would make sense to be collecting points through spend if you're not getting at least 1 cent per point in value. You can almost always do better with a cash back card. That's certainly true if you're using a card that only earns 1 point per dollar. But even in bonus categories, for the most part, you want to be able to get 1 cent per point or better in most bonus categories to make that card worth using over just using a simple cash back card. So it's important to find ways to get good value.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to talk about brokers and talk about why we're not going to talk about brokers. So there are airline mileage brokers that will buy your miles, but I can't stand the whole thing. And here's why we don't recommend this. There's a few things. One is that the loyalty programs have explicit terms barring that. If you're found to have sold your miles to a broker, they'll shut down your account, but sort of a bigger picture thing is, I think brokers are just so bad for this hobby. What they do, they book freely cancelable, changeable awards, or cheaply cancelable, changeable awards way in advance. And so they lock up all kinds of award space that we can't get access to because they're holding until they're ready to sell that space. And it also causes airlines to implement customer unfriendly practices like increasing change and cancellation fees, for example. So they're just so bad for our hobby, I think. And also for the people traveling, for people who buy travel from brokers, bad things can happen to them too. Their flights can be canceled without their knowledge even. They could get stopped mid-travel because it's been known that sometimes you could be at an airport trying to check in for the flight. Maybe it's a flight home and be told, okay, show me the credit card used to purchase this airfare. Well, you don't have it. It was the broker or the person selling the miles to the broker that actually used their credit card. And so you're stuck and you can't fly that flight. So there's all kinds of reasons. I don't like the whole broker practice, and we're not going to talk about using that. We're also not going to talk about options in that kind of go against the general way points should be used by the programs. Because keep in mind, these are things that I would freely tell my uncle to do, and I'm not going to tell him to do things that are kind of shady. And so I'm sure you can find ways to cash out your points that are not explicitly allowed. And, by thinking outside the box, you can find ways to do that. I don't recommend that.
So let's talk about the various transferable currencies then through that lens and how you can get decent value out of your points, 1 cent per point or better. So let's start out with a softball here, Amex membership rewards points, which I said start out with a softball, but actually, like Greg said, if you were to just redeem for a statement credit, I think they give you something like 0.6 of a cent per point if you try to cash it out or something like that, right? It's terrible. Whatever it is, maybe it's 0.8, whatever.
Yeah, it's something awful. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just cashing out directly in most cases is a really bad idea, but you can unlock 1 cent to 1.1 cent per point value with certain platinum cards. I'm going to talk through that. And don't tune out if you don't have a platinum card right now. We're going to talk also about how to get one and how to make that cost effective. But if you have the platinum card from Schwab, you can convert points to your Schwab investment account for 1.1 cents per point value. So just you get cash them out directly that way. So that's excellent and easy. Morgan Stanley Platinum Card has a similar thing, but that's only 1 cent per point. Finally, if you have the Business Platinum Card and you open a business checking account with Amex, now those accounts are free. And there's also often a 30,000 point welcome offer available with those business checking accounts. So if you have that combination, Business Platinum Card plus business checking account, you can cash out to your business checking account for 1 cent per point. So those are the options for getting 1 cent per point or better. Let's talk about what happens if you don't already have one of those cards. Well, ideally, you can apply and get a welcome bonus. Most of us can't really apply for the Morgan Stanley card because you have to have a Morgan Stanley investment account, and there's not an easy way to do that outside of having an expensive account with them. So if you don't already have an account with them, it's not worth trying to open one just for that. Schwab is much easier. You can open an account no problem with Schwab and then apply for the Schwab Platinum Card. And of course, Business Platinum Card. Anyone with even the tiniest small business can apply for the Business Platinum Card. So these cards all have $695 annual fees as we're recording this. You might wonder why I'm recommending getting a card where you have to pay $700 when what you're trying to do is get money out of Amex. Well, the thing is, the points you could get for a welcome offer would way exceed the cost of the annual fee. So, for example, if you got just a 100,000 point welcome offer and you were able to cash out for just 1 cent per point, that's $1,000 cashed out. So at 100,000 points, you're ahead. If you got a big, Business Platinum 200,000 point offer, you're obviously way, way ahead that way. So anyway, if you can apply, get a welcome bonus, and then cash out those points, then you're ahead in two ways. you have that new welcome bonus plus all the points you already had, which you can cash out. And then when the next annual fee comes due, you can cancel the card and not have to pay the next year. So overall, it should do you well. Many people, though, are not going to be in a situation where they can get a welcome bonus right now. One might be that you just don't have the capacity for spend in order to meet the minimum spend requirements for a new welcome bonus. Another might be that you've already had these cards, or you've had certain cards that make you ineligible for a welcome offer. So you might get a pop-up when you apply saying you're not eligible for a welcome offer. Do you want to apply anyway? And let's talk through briefly what would happen if you applied anyway, or if you have a business green card or business gold card. Another option is to just upgrade to the business platinum card from one of those. Unfortunately, there's no upgrade pass to the Schwab or Morgan Stanley platinum cards that I'm aware of. Anyway, so if you apply and don't get a welcome bonus, what you still can do is earn all of the credits that are available on these cards, because these cards are full of coupons, perks, basically rebates for various things, and there's a lot. And so if you do it right, you can get a lot of credits back in that 1 year. Now, it might be a lot of work that you're not planning on doing, so that's something to factor in. But it can add up to a lot. So, for example, all of the platinum cards have $200 airline fee reimbursements per calendar year. If you sign up mid-year, that means you could get $200 this year and $200 next year for a net $400 before canceling your account when the next annual fee comes due. You could sign up for Clear Plus, get $209 of value that way. With the Business Platinum, there's about $620 more of sort of easy-ish to get credits. There's up to $200 in Hilton credits you can get over the course of a year. $120 in wireless phone credits you can get over the course of a year, $10 at a time, and up to $300 in Dell credits. On the personal card side, there's $200 of Uber credits, where it's $15 a month and $35 in December, and $400 in Fine Hotels and Resorts, or the hotel collection credits, $200 this year and $200 next year, $240 in digital entertainment credits. That's things like signing up for Disney Plus and other services that are credited back to you, up to $20 per month there, and two $50 Saks credits. So altogether, if you can use these credits effectively over the course of the year having the card, you can get back way more than the annual fee in value. And even if you don't get quite that much, it might be worth it to you if you have a lot of membership rewards points that you want to cash out, it might be worth it to you anyway.
Yeah. If you've been collecting membership rewards points for years and years, and you're suddenly in a situation where you can't travel, then some cost to cash them out might be worth it to you. And, some of the things that Greg talked about, like the Fine Hotels and Resorts credits and the Hilton credits, probably don't apply to you if you're looking to cash out your points because you're not traveling. But, maybe you'll find a use anyway for you or a family member. Or again, the rest of the credits add up to pretty close to the annual fee in potential value, even for things that don't require any travel there. So maybe not fully the annual fee, but close enough to it to justify getting it in order to cash out a big chunk of Amex membership rewards points. So that's how you're going to get 1 cent or better out of your membership rewards points. But that's not the only transferable currency on the block. So let's talk about the newer kid on the block, Bilt Rewards.
Yeah. So Bilt Rewards are tough because you can cash out for statement credits for 0.55 cents per point. Ooh. Don't do that. You could cash out by spending on points on Amazon, Lyft, buying gift cards for 0.7 cents per point.
Ouch.
There's probably other things too like that, 0.7 cents per point. Don't do that either. What you want to do, what you want is cash, the options are pretty darn limited at this time, but one great option is to use points for a house down payment. You get 1.5 cents per point value. So that's, for example, I could tell my son, just keep your Bilt points until you're ready to buy a house, and then you'll get some good value from them that way. Of course, you can get much better value with travel with Bilt. They have great transfer partners. They often do these great transfer bonuses to increase the value even more. But if you're not planning to use it for travel, 1.5 is great. The other thing you could use it for is if you have student loan repayments to make, you can get 1 cent per point value that way.
There you go. By the way, you mentioned the Amazon ability to use points at Amazon, and many of these transferable currencies offer the ability to use points at Amazon. And universally, you don't want to do that to buy stuff at Amazon in full with your
Right.
points. So, I mean, you can do that with Amex, you can do that with all the other issuers too, basically, even some of the hotel points and things. And generally, you don't want to do that because you're getting really poor value, much less than 1 cent per point. I know it feels like free stuff, but if you can find a way to cash out for 1 cent per point, you can get all your free stuff and still have 0.3 of a cent per point left over, probably. So don't do that. You want to avoid that. Now, every now and then there's a promotion where it's like use at least 1 point and get 40% off or 60%, whatever. Those promos are great. Use 1 point in order to get the discount.
Right.
Don't use all your points to buy your stuff.
Right. Yeah, totally. Also, a sneaky thing that sometimes happens with some cards is if you try to use them at a gas station, the gas station terminal might say, "Do you want to redeem your points for this gas?" And it's hard right there at the pump trying to do the math to see what value am I getting. Well, let me answer that for you. You're getting terrible value if you say yes. Just say no to that.
I see the same thing each time I take a lift now because it tells me how much my Bilt points are worth, and every time I'm like, oh man. I don't even want to think about that because it's again an awful value for the points. So don't do that.
Right. Okay, so what about Capital One miles? What can we do if we want to cash out our Capital One miles and we're not traveling?
Not a lot. Because there's really not a good way. If you cash them out for a statement credit, you get what, 0.5 cent per mile or something ridiculous like that. And while you can move cash back to miles, the same is not true in reverse. You can't move the miles to cash back on a cash back card. So your options are very limited. I mean, obviously, there are times where things like the baseball tickets can be purchased, using your points at good value. But that's only a few tickets per game, and that's a really specific use. Those types of things come up now and then where maybe there's something that you might find useful, but not very likely. So really, I mean, your option there is mostly to use them for travel. There's not a great additional option.
Yeah. So I don't think my uncle has Capital One miles, but if he did, I would just say, you know what? You still sometimes probably pay for travel for your grandkids or someone. Keep the points for that. Like use your card to pay for that travel, and then you can go into your account and erase those travel purchases at 1 cent per mile. That's the thing to do. Or actually transfer them to airline miles to book flights from airline programs for your grandchildren or whoever it is in your family is traveling.
Good. All right, Citi ThankYou rewards are up next.
Yeah. So Citi is used to be very, very simple in that you'd get 1 cent per point just cashing out directly from any of your ThankYou rewards cards. But recently that changed or is about to change. So the Strata Premier card and Prestige card starting August 24th, cashing out will only give you 0.75 cents per point if you just cash out. But there's an easy workaround. Like if you have, for example, a double cash, a custom cash, one of those cards that is not subject to this 0.75 thing, then what you could do is, as long as you've pooled your points together in the ThankYou portal, then you could still cash out for 1 cent per point, regardless of where the points came from. You could also transfer your Strata Premier or Prestige points to somebody else or to another card of yours. When you make a transfer, you've got 90 days to do something with the points. But let's say your spouse or someone else in your family has a double cash card, just to pick one out of the blue. You could move your Citi Prestige or Citi Strata Premier cards to their account.
Points.
And then just
knock the cards
points to their account, and then make sure that they cash out for you within 90 days. And then you get the 1 cent per point. We used to have the ability to also get a 10% rebate if we had the Rewards Plus card, but they've discontinued that. And so I think as we're recording this, we still have a few weeks maybe to leverage that, but that's not an ongoing thing that we can do.
Very good. And you sort of mentioned this, but to be very explicit, if you transfer the points to another cardholder, you have 90 days to use them. and then they expire if you don't use them. So that was the part I just wanted to make sure we added, that if they don't get used within that 90 days, they disappear. So you only want to transfer your points to another cardholder when you know that there is an imminent use in mind, whether that's cashing them out or doing something else with them. There has to be, you have to use them or lose them right away.
Right. And I should have mentioned that about Capital One miles too. One of the nice things there is you can move your points to someone else. So, going back to my uncle's case, if he had a bunch of Capital One miles, maybe he would just want to gift them to his son or a grandchild or someone, and just boom, and then that person just needs to have a Capital One miles card of any sort in order to receive them.
Yeah, and that's a really important point with Capital One, because that sticks out versus some other issuers. Now, Citi also, you can transfer, I think, to anybody else that's got a qualifying card. But Capital One and Citi, I think, are unique in that way, whereas it's hard to do that with most other programs. So anybody has a Capital One miles account, you can move your Capital One miles to them. You just need to call and have the card numbers. So it doesn't have to be somebody that lives in your house or even a family member. It could be a friend that you give the miles to. So very easy to do that. There's no cap or limit with Capital One. I don't remember if there's a limit. I think there is with Citi as to how many points you can.
Oh yeah, I think there might be 100,000 point limit per year, something like that. The Capital One also, unlike Citi, like transferring your points to someone else, it doesn't cause them to expire after 90 days or anything like that. So they're safe. They're actually fine to keep them as Capital One miles until they're ready to use them. So that would be good. All right. What about Chase?
Well, Chase is pretty easy to get 1 cent per point out of, because that's the standard redemption for Ultimate Rewards points. Whatever Ultimate Rewards earning card you've got, that's going to be an option to you to just redeem them at 1 cent per point. Now, you could sometimes book travel. Now, I know we're talking about not traveling, but you could book travel and use your points to sort of erase the purchase, kind of like Capital One, but you don't probably want to do that. Instead, you probably want to cash those points out. And then if you were going to book something, then you would just book that separately and earn points on that and pay it off with the money that you cashed out. So cashing out at 1 cent per point is easy to do, and that's the way you do it if you want to get just 1 cent per point out of your Ultimate Rewards points. But you can do a little bit better in some ways. So Chase has their pay yourself back different categories that sometimes change. The categories change, and sometimes the redemption rate for those categories change. But right now, you can redeem Ultimate Rewards points at 1.5 cents per point for select charities. If you have a Sapphire Reserve, that is. If you have a Sapphire Reserve, you also can usually get 1.25 cents per point paying the annual fee. And then there are other categories that rotate. As we record this in July of 2025, categories, I think, are groceries, gas, and home improvement. So those could be pretty useful categories to cash out points at 1.25 cents per point.
Yeah. And to be clear, here's how this works. It's a lot like how Capital One miles work, is in that you charge these qualifying purchases to your card, just like you would normally do. Like you use your card in the grocery store to buy things, and then you go to the Chase Pay Yourself Back screen to erase those charges, and you get 1.25 cents per point value if you have the Consumer Sapphire Reserve card, while that is one of the eligible categories. There's a special play with the Aeroplan card, but again, we're back to booking travel. So again, if this was like my uncle, I would say, well, all right, this is if you're buying travel, your once a year travel, or you're buying travel for your grandkids or whatever. Because, but it's worth talking about, just because it's an interesting and kind of convoluted situation. If you have Chase Ultimate Rewards points and you also have the Chase Aeroplan card, then a few things happen. One, you get a 10% bonus when you transfer your Ultimate Rewards points to Aeroplan. And then the Aeroplan card has its own pay yourself back of 1.25 cents for travel, also for paying back the annual fee. So the idea is you pay for travel with your Aeroplan card, and then you could erase those purchases and get 1.25 cents value. Well, if you got those Aeroplan miles by transferring from Chase with the 10% bonus, that's like getting 1.37.5 cents per point value with your Chase points. Things get even better in that Chase periodically does a 20% transfer bonus from Chase Ultimate Rewards to Aeroplan. And if you're a cardholder, you have that normal 10% bonus on top of that. So you have a 30% transfer bonus. And then if you erase charges that way, the math works out to 1.625 cents per point value. So I wanted to point all that out, even though we're talking about ways to avoid travel and get at least 1 cent per point. But this is just such a clever play that I heard from someone else. I didn't figure this out, but it's worth keeping in mind if you have that combination of things and you have at least some travel to spend. You can only do this up to 200,000 points per year that you could pay yourself back with the Aeroplan card.
Yeah, there you go. And if all of your 200,000 points came from transferring from other programs to Aeroplan, you may end up having a problem with that. So, this is something to do if you're transferring mainly from Chase Ultimate Rewards to Aeroplan and or earning your points with your Aeroplan card. But the transfer is really where it's compelling because, as Greg mentioned, if you're able to combine a transfer bonus with the 10% cardholder bonus, then the value per point really becomes very interesting. I mean, we talk about it being great. You can get like 1.6 cents per point out of your Citi points for certain hotel programs. This is 1.625, and it's not limited to a specific hotel program. So it's a good potential redemption.
Right. And the great thing is you can buy travel any way you want to, directly from travel providers. You could go through portals, get extra cash back or other rewards that way. And so, it's you could use all the discounts you have available to you to book travel. So it really is a nice way to go.
Yeah. So not great for your uncle unless your uncle wants to book some travel for you or his grandkids or whoever else, somebody else he knows who is traveling anyway. Then maybe that works out to be pretty good.
He probably wants to book me some JetBlue flights.
I imagine so. At 1.625 cents per point, I bet he's ready. Let's go, Uncle Myler. Do it for everybody rooting for Greg to do the trip. All right. So I think that wraps up our ways of kind of getting 1 cent per point or better, kind of following the terms of the various programs there. So there you have it. Let's move on to this week's question of the week. Now, this week's question of the week is a question that comes from me, and it will also be answered by me. Sorry, Greg. But I had a question that I thought was relevant particularly because of Greg's mention of the JetBlue bonus, or the JetBlue promotion rather. So my question this week for myself is, how can you book a JetBlue flight with Etihad miles to an airport that Etihad says doesn't exist? And so a pretty specific set of questions. So I'm going to back up to why this even matters. So JetBlue's 25 for 25 promotion requires flying to 25 of their destinations and flying in a fare class of blue or better. And we were told in the beginning that both cash bookings and award bookings, both made through JetBlue and made through JetBlue's partners, including partner award redemptions, would qualify as long as they're in blue fare classes or higher. We didn't quite believe that, so we have followed up multiple times and gotten it straight from JetBlue that yes, booking the flights with Etihad Guest Miles or Qatar Airways Avios will count as long as you're in a blue fare class or higher, and as long as you get your JetBlue TrueBlue number associated with it. And that is worth keeping in mind because there are some situations where Etihad Guest Miles are particularly valuable for JetBlue flights. Now, it's not every single flight. It's not all the time. Sometimes it's not going to work out to be a good deal at all, but there are some times where it's a slamming deal to book through Etihad Guest. So it's worth using an award search tool to find award availability. Now, that said, I was using an award search tool, and I came across one of those situations where it was a slamming deal to use Etihad Guest Miles. And I'm going to make up different airport codes because I don't want to give up the routing that I was using right now. So I'm going to make up something else that mimics anyway what I was talking about. So this isn't the exact situation. So if you go looking for this, and you're like, oh, it doesn't work out the way you said, just know that I'm painting a picture for you. So I was looking at an itinerary. Let's say it was from Hartford, Connecticut to DCA, the Washington Reagan Airport, to Fort Lauderdale. And so I was trying to search that, and through an award search tool, it was showing me an itinerary like that. Okay. Again, Hartford to DCA does not exist. It's just for the purposes of this example. So through the award search tool, it was showing me that I could book that through Etihad Guest for an attractive number of miles. But when I went to Etihad Guest and I put in Hartford as my origination point, it would not let me put in the Fort Lauderdale end. It said that the airport code wasn't found. And it was ridiculous because Fort Lauderdale is a huge airport. And Fort Lauderdale is not the airport in question here, but it was a similarly big airport. So I knew that it wasn't that Etihad doesn't know that that airport exists, but for whatever reason, it just wouldn't let me combine it with the origin point that I was in. And so frustrated, I was like messing around with this for a while, saying the award search tool says the award is there. There must be a way to get it to see this, right? And actually backing way up, if I had clicked through from the award search tool, it would have done the heavy lifting for me here. So that would have been the easiest way to do this. But what I discovered on my own was that if I looked up from DCA, Washington Reagan Airport, to Fort Lauderdale, it would give me results for that part of the journey. And then I could go in and edit the search and only edit the origination airport to Hartford, let's say in this case. And it would keep the destination airport of Fort Lauderdale in there. If I didn't touch that, I just changed the origin airport. It would keep the destination airport and then boom, found the award. So moral of the story is if you run into that situation with Etihad where it's telling you that the destination airport can't be found, try some search from some other airport to the airport you want to end up at, then go back and modify the search parameter. After you run the search, go back and modify the search parameters to change the origination airport, and you may well find the award that you're looking for. Now, in my case, I didn't actually book it right at that moment, and it eventually disappeared, so a lot of frustration on that end. But moral of the story is you can play around with that, and that's a trick that I actually learned from Greg, I think, years ago, because Virgin Atlantic used to have a very similar quirk with their search tool where sometimes it would tell you couldn't find an airport, but then if you ran a different type of a search and then you went back and edited the search, then you could keep the destination airport in there. I think it was almost the same exact situation with the Virgin Atlantic website years ago.
Yeah. And sometimes when that kind of thing happens, you can also sometimes, not always, edit the URL, like put in whatever airports, and then if those airports show up in the URL on the search results screen, you might be able to just change those airport codes in the URL and refresh and do it that way. But not all of them work that way. So I'm just saying.
And then one final thing I want to throw out there is two additional pieces to throw out there with this. One is that one of the rules of the promotion, the 25 for 25 promotion, is that you have to get your JetBlue True Blue number associated with the reservation. And so I didn't actually complete this booking, but if I had, I would have had to have somehow found the JetBlue confirmation code to bring it up in the JetBlue app, and then I should probably be able to add everybody's JetBlue True Blue numbers in there. Instead, I was trying to do it on the Etihad end, and you can do that. You can select the loyalty program. I think, and I say I think because this was a situation where I think the award inventory was either phantom or it was disappearing or something. I think that I had to keep my Etihad guest number in for me in order to book it. But it put that in there by default and wouldn't let me change it until I checked the box to book for somebody else. And then I could book for myself as though I was somebody else, except the system didn't seem to like that. So I'm not totally confident that's going to work yet. But hopefully I'll have more to report on that front on the blog relatively soon, because I'm sure that there will be a couple of flights I'm going to book via Etihad Guest. And that might be kind of surprising to anybody who's listened to the show for a while, because I always talk about how horrible it is to book anything through Etihad Guest, because their cancellation policy is the worst in the world. And so I ordinarily would not even remotely consider booking through Etihad Guest. In this case, it was pretty close to departure, so I was pretty confident we were going to take it. So I was not as worried about the cancellation policy. I'd be much more worried farther in advance, and if I were depending on like the first JetBlue flight to happen in order to get to this next one, there could definitely be some problems with booking through Etihad. You could set yourself up for a problem if you're not familiar with the drawbacks of the program. And you're kind of booking risky flights. So be careful out there with it, but it could be a great tool because you could save a whole ton depending on the situation. So it's worth keeping an eye on that. And then final tip that I was going to add to that is I did have to set up accounts for my kids, which was easy to do in the JetBlue app. You can just go into the app, and if you scroll down far enough, it'll say something about creating an account for a child. And that was really simple. I just had to enter their names, date of birth, and email address, and boom, it gave me a JetBlue TrueBlue number for each of them. I'm not sure if it immediately activated, though, because I later realized that they got an email that said to complete your account activation, click here and set a password. It made it look in the app like it was a done deal as soon as I entered their email address and date of birth, but you may have to set that password. So that's a final safety tip for anybody out there trying to go for JetBlue's 25 for 25 with a family.
There you go.
All right. That's the end of today's episode. That brings us to the end. If you enjoyed this episode, you'd like to get more of this stuff in your email inbox each day or each week, go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Again, that's frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list. Follow us on all the various social media. Join our Frequent Miler Insiders Facebook group where you can ask questions about this stuff any time of day and get answers from lots of different knowledgeable people. And if you have a question that you'd like to be considered for a future question of the week or a comment that you'd like to be considered for a giant mailbag, you can send those too.
Send it to mailbag@frequentmiler.com. Bye, everybody.